You are on air with the gray regime. Our values are honor, valor, sacrifice, and esprit de corps. And welcome back, operatives. Gratitude for all who have joined us, all of those who will join us. Tonight we are convened here to talk about something of a great deal of importance, especially to Black society. And you need to be ready because I think many of you are confused as to why you see some of the phenomena reemerging as it once did in the Jim Crow South. Many of you have deluded yourselves to a great degree. You have deluded yourselves into believing because you are in a postmodern society that you are somehow safe. You have deluded yourself with the idea that because you have the ability to make more money than your ancestors, that you are somehow secure. You have deluded yourself into believing because you have sexual access to the broader society that you have somehow arrived. I want you to keep in mind that if you are Black and you are living in 2020, whether you're at the top of the socioeconomic strata or at the bottom, that you are unsafe. I want to make it clear in no uncertain terms, especially to you agents of chaos that spread your misinformation, those of a less than dutiful variety. You're no better than the coons of yesteryear. In fact, I would say you're a great deal worse because how is it that you can have access to the most powerful information gathering and spreading tools that those same humans of yesteryear would fawn over as if it were alien pieces of technology? And yet, with all this access to technology, it's made you a great deal dumber. How is this possible? Well, it's quite simple, really. That this thing has made you lazier intellectually, and it has lowered your aspirations to do anything for yourself. It is said when strong men cry, all hope is lost. And those strong men whose bones rattle the ground. They are right now crying in disbelief, even in the realm of spirits, as to how they could have sacrificed so much to achieve so little. To have did all of the heavy lifting only to leave it to a bunch of ungrateful, overly entitled, derelict Negro males whose women won't let them lead sphere. You are nothing but agents of chaos and stupidity. Every single one of these derelict Negro males has some kind of Trump fever. And if you are a Negro who has Trump fever, you have lost the battle already. And then you wonder why you see hit pieces like the one you see before you hear. Tell you a little story. Once upon a time, there was a sector or a section of this nation who did not want to adhere to the dictates of the executive branch of the Union. It was averse to change. Despite the country's aspirations to try to keep up with the industrial arm of London, they refused to change. Even though that machine which could do the work of 100 slaves, and not only that, yield greater amount of profit, they were averse to change. Even though the rebellions all across the South was making the institution of slavery too expensive to continue practicing for most, which is why you still see people using this quote about only 8% of slave owners, or rather 8% of whites owned slaves. The quote that they are taking that from is from the latter part of slavery. After the rebellions, after the loss of life, after the destruction of property, the insurrections, in which insurance companies and lenders would no longer cover the assets of those who could not keep control of their slave population. And thus, by the time we get down to the Civil War, the number of slave holders was dramatically reduced. down to where just about 8% of the country, if you're white, could even own a slave. And what happened was Abraham Lincoln employed a strategy of subterfuge in which he stated that he was going to abolish slavery. It's a warfare tactic meant to encourage more insurrection in the slaves against their southern masters. However, his intent was not truly to free anyone, because this was a tactic used to muscle the South into staying within the Union. And a great war ensued. And even after the succeeded Confederacy lost the war, on its very deathbed, it declared that the South shall rise again. It declared it. And in fact, they made preparations. The they created a strategy that was a prolonged and protracted campaign in which a certain segment, the former Confederates, could make good on that promise of the South rising back to prominence. The only difference now is that you can't see it, because it was done, after all, right under your nose. And thus I say unto thee, black man, because instead of doing what is necessary to propel your race and in seeking your personal and individual aspirations and none for your group, and you wonder why you get to a certain socioeconomic level and then find yourself all but isolated. And now we arrive here, and you have no one to blame but yourself. You have no one to scapegoat but yourself, because of your tremendous stupidity and mass willful ignorance. And because you think you deserve to have your opinions that you have sorely mistaken for facts heard, you come onto multinational platform, unqualified, ill prepared, barely possessing the intellect of a farm animal. And you come on here and you spread your garbage. And then you wonder why you get treated the way that you do. You wonder why you are disrespected, mocked, why no political party within this system takes you seriously. You hinder those who have aspirations of creating their own. You have turned pro-blackness into a popularity contest. You have betrayed the sacred right of even using the title of pro-blackness to fleece your audiences. And then you look up in a generation and then you wonder why the things that are happening to you are happening to you. Whether you are Pookie and Ray Ray, or whether you are an executive of Louis Vuitton who's being brutally accosted by police officers, leaving your executive office. But you never miss an opportunity to jump out in front of a camera and show the broader society just how well you can dance a jig. Oh, you never miss the opportunity to dance a jig, but you always miss the opportunity to actually do something for yourself. Politics is just war by another name. Economics is just war by another name. These things in a capitalist system determine what your place in society will be. But yet, you never miss an opportunity to say some nonsensical, almost Disney-like whimsical bullshit about socialism in spite of the fact you don't even know what the term really means. And I hear it all over this space. I hear it from those of the derelict sphere whose women won't let them lead sphere, who cry incessantly about the affairs of women. and their mating choices, expecting submission without provision, which is a not only a impossibility. I mean, in fact, if you are looking for submission without provision, you actually would do better waiting to win the lottery. Because submission is a tradable instrument. It's a commodity, just like a man's resources, just like a man's ability to provide. Submission too is a tradable instrument, no different than a man's money. And what kills me about all of this is that many of you come into these spaces and claim that you are everything from six-figure niggas to businessmen. Well, let me make it quite clear for you. If you find yourself panhandling for donations on YouTube, that is not a business. Or if you are like Obsidian, who sends people invoices with no services rendered, you are not a businessman. They sent 3 invoices with no services rendered is asking for a handout. In the same way that they employ it in the dating market, they are our sexual marketplace welfare recipients, trying to bash the women into giving them some pity pussy. And that is the height of the Negro aspiration. That is the apex goal of all aspirations of this modern Negro. And while you were around here like a rabidly loose dog chasing your own tail, your greatest competitor has been playing Risk and isolating you on all sides. That is the difference between chasing pussy versus chasing power. What you see here on the screen is 3 different maps. The map that you see center screen is the map of the Confederate States. The 13 Confederate States that are represented by the 13 stars on the Confederate flag in a cross pattern. The map above it is a map of the current political environment. While you have been distracted with the political Super Bowl, you have completely missed the regular season. And in fact, over the course of this latest political Super Bowl, they have been telling you what the answer actually is. It is the one answer that you continue to ignore. And in all your grand stupidity, you fail to comprehend what has been told to you. Saying Trump has to win this state. Trump has to win that state. Trump has to win this state. Biden has to win that state. They have told you the answer. They have told you over and over again. I want you to understand something quite plainly. If a person is running for president and they have to win a state, what it tells you is that the power is not in the federal seat, the federal executive seat. It is actually in the states, which is why he has to go there and pander in front of large crowds of people to win said state. Because if, I mean, the presidency was really all that important, do you think you would, uh, someone running for president would waste their time going around the country selling himself or herself to the states? And because you have missed the ball, you have been watching the re-emergence of the old Confederacy, which is represented by the large map here in the lower right-hand corner. Because that map is a map of white nationalist hate groups and where they are most concentrated, which coincides with states Trump has recently won already. Yet, you spend a good portion of your time going on to this very powerful and overly abused multinational, multimedia platform to gargle the nuts of the next federal quarterback. of which he has made linemen of the Senate, and have made defensive ends of the courts. And he did this all on your watch, on our watch. And as I say unto thee, black man, this is all your fault. You have not only betrayed yourself, but you have betrayed history, of which you stand on the wrong side. Historic number of federal judges. You see, the old Confederacy has risen again. And because you have been asleep at the fucking wheel, this can be blamed on no one but you. It's no one's fault but yours. Now, I know you're going to play victim. I know you're going to play victim and blame this all on, well, the black woman, of course. I know you're going to play victim and blame this all on the Democrats, of course. But no, this is nobody's fault but yours. And so when you look at these articles such as this, and though this hit piece is filled with misinformation, there are great modicums of truth hidden between the lines that cannot be denied. Jason Johnson from The Grio wrote this hit piece. Someone who looks like you and I. Says opinion, we need to re-engage our problematic brothers, because even if Trump loses, what have we gained as a community if we decide that 13% of black men are just trash? I care about Ice Cube's opinion on the state of black America in the same way I care about Kyrie Irving's views on geography or Isaiah Washington's views of LGBTQ issues. I'm suspecting Jason Johnson is LGBTQ Otherwise, I don't see the importance of adding that into this article. Celebrities with big platforms and limited information say ridiculous things all the time, and that's not worth a lot of energy. However, Ice Cube's foray into politics, the media backlash, the glee with which the far right is amplifying it, and the subsequent blame black men hashtag that's sprung from it all has made one thing abundantly clear. There's an Ice Cube in your family. There's an Ice Cube probably on the phone next to you as you read this article. Well, it has become a weekly ritual to drag these men for filth online. It might actually be a lot more productive to learn how to reach them before it's too late. Back in the 90s, Common dropped a diss track called I See the Bitch in You about Ice Cube and the gangster rappers at the time that were poisoning hip hop with violence, misogyny, and whack samples from the 70s. Now, I know this author, Jason Johnson, is either being sarcastic or he really has no taste because great music came out of the 70s. In other words, Common was pointing out that Cube wasn't conscious, which is the 90s word for woke, as he states. Like Little Kim was the 90s version of Nicki Minaj, Ice Cube has always been problematic troll whose celebrity and wealth usually insulates him from much criticism. He's basically a West Coast 50 Cent without the six pack abs. However, both then and now, Ice Cube exemplifies a certain philosophical strand of straight black men who are now becoming Trump curious and could be lost to the powers of MAGA forever. How can you spot if there's an Ice Cube in your life? It's pretty simple. These black men all share the following values with some justification to a certain degree. One, that all white people are racist and can't be trusted. That is actually a true statement to a degree. White people are not to be trusted until they've proven themselves otherwise. Two, a man's value is determined by his ability to make a lot of money. And the more money you have, the more powerful you are. Nothing could be further from the truth. Even though I do find it rather peculiar that we have so many six figure quote unquote niggas in this space on this platform. And yet, when you peruse the aisles of this digital platform, the majority of Negroes who share the same hue as you and I are mostly derelict. In fact, let's take the Black Manosphere for example. Hell, we don't even have to take the entire Black Manosphere. We could simply take the so called founding fathers, if they could really be called that. We can say add all of their intelligences together, and you would barely have enough to scrape up to get by. Money does not equal power. Money is but a tool. It is a tool. And it is a tool either accumulated as a result of power or a tool used to acquire power. But it is not power itself. As we have seen time and time again throughout history, there are some people who simply cannot be bought. As we've seen with the case of, say, a one esteemed Fred Hampton, chairman of the Chicago chapter, the Black Panther Party. As we've seen with the late, great, and esteemed Shirley Chisholm. Money does not equal power, or people would be easily bought. But when you have people who stand on such strong moral character and fiber and a foundation rooted in justice, these people have something that money simply can't buy. And yet, these are the people that you need to propel society forward. Three, women, like most white people, can't really be trusted. However, if you make enough money, you can earn their loyalty, even their love. This is another fallacy. Money has never been enough to earn anyone's loyalty. And as the Beatles once wrote, money can't buy you love. Money can, however, buy you soldiers. Money can, however, buy you stability. But love, no. And people who think money can buy them love, it is simply because they have not learned how to yet love themselves. And so they have a great deal of internalized self hatred in which they use their money as a blanket, as a mask to overcompensate their lack of character. 4, collective action, marches, protest, voting, and politics don't change anything for Black people. This, to a degree, is true. Protesting alone does not achieve a damn thing. Marching alone does not achieve a damn thing. Voting alone does not achieve a damn thing. Now, collective action, however, it achieves a great deal of things. This is why I say this article and articles like this, yes, they are filled with misinformation, but there are little modicums of truth. You see, the way this is written, collective action is in the beginning. So from a tactical communication standpoint, it is meant for you to kind of gloss over collective action and then keep reading. Collective action, marches, protests, voting, and politics don't change anything for Black people. Now that you've glossed over the collective action, it causes you to menialize the importance of collective action, because the things that follow or subsequent to the first thing said are much smaller, of much smaller significance than collective action. Collective action is something that is more difficult to achieve. It requires you to galvanize a critical mass, unlike marches and protests, which are localized. And five, straight Black men get blamed for everything, and it's not fair. And this is what gives me the greatest inclination that the author of this article is some kind of LGBTQ shill, and is with a great many LGBTQ Negroes, especially those of the male variety. They don't see themselves as being a part of the male demographic, just like many of those of the manosphere variety. They, for the most part, have just found out in their 40 somethings that they came equipped with male parts, and the world is forcing them to act as if they had male parts that they were completely ignorant of before. As they went around impregnating everything walking and then complain about having to pay the cost to be the boss in child support court. Oh, how they love the free lunch whenever it comes to pussy. And oh, how they hate the bill the waiter brings them. Because this Negro who's writing this is completely wrong. Straight Black men don't get blamed for everything. Black men, period, get blamed for everything. Rightfully so. I mean, this is a competing male group that we are up against, and there's no other group that can seriously be an opposing force to said male group like another male group. You see, because in this world, men compete against other men. And these are men that are executing these policies and plans. And therefore, it is the responsibility of men to oppose those men who mean their community's harm. Lest we have a grand reminder. The redder the state, the more concentrated the hate group is, the more deeply rooted the hatred is. Says if you have any doubt that these men exist, just check out the Blame Black Men hashtag that trended on Twitter Tuesday night as a response to Jamil Hill's tweet about black men and the patriarchy. The anger out there is real, and there's plenty of forces, both white and black, happy to exploit it. Jamil Hill, for instance, wrote a tweet. I have increasingly found that many black men just want better access to patriarchy. They don't actually want to dismantle it. Why would we want to dismantle patriarchy? Because if we dismantle patriarchy, especially if we dismantle black patriarchy, then guess what? Black women, for instance, have no security. Matter of fact, they'd have even less than what they have now. So if you're telling me that you feel unsafe, dismantling a patriarchy would be an act of stupidity. You think you're unprotected now. What do you think happens if we dismantle the patriarchy? Well, what's happened is that you're left with even less security than you had before. And you see this from the Shea Butter Twitter side, black women, gay black men, police, white America versus the black man. This is probably a manosphere meme. Says, how do I know these values? As a straight, able-bodied black man in America, these values are the low-hanging fruit of patriarchy and capitalism. It's almost impossible not to subscribe to some of these beliefs. Now, let's be clear, the majority of black men probably only subscribe to one or two of these values on some limited level. However, once you start moving down the list, it becomes a pretty volatile cocktail that makes monsters out of men. A serum served up by ADOS, sovereign citizens and small corners of the internet. You take the whole dose of these values, and even the most mild mannered, well intended black man can be transformed from Dr. Juneteenth to Mr. Hotep. These men are a minority of the black community. However, they are loud and get attention disproportionate to their actual numbers. A league asked me earlier what percentage of black men did I think fell into this category. I don't know a figure, but I'm sure that 100% of the 13% of black men that voted for Donald Trump subscribe to all of these attitudes. I do know that a lot of these black men are hurting. And believe it or not, if we are committed to the collective improvement of black lives, we need them as well. So the author of this hit piece does have a brain. There are not enough black people in America that we can just throw out all our problematic brothers or sisters for that matter. There are not enough black people in America for us to just the riffraff. However, I am not a very moral person in which I do not care. I will call them all, as it is better to have trimmed the problem than to keep the problem on and allow it to continue to fester and infect a greater amount of the populace. Roland Martin tweeted, "How many of 50 Cent's fans make 400,000 or more?" They won't remotely be affected by a tax increase. Feel free to ignore this endorsement. He should be pissed that Trump only paid $750 in federal taxes while his fan base paid more. He goes on to say, "I'm not suggesting coddling the ice cubes in your life, sexism, ignorance, or penchant for confusing contrarianism with independent thinking. The goal is to inoculate them from the next dose of nonsense, to keep them from amplifying self loathing hashtags like blame black men with facts, sincere engagement, and validation, rather than just calling them trash and toxic." You'd be amazed how many black men from the quote unquote hood to Harvard have heard black men are trash their whole lives from within the black community. Then those same voices turn around and blame these men for not wanting to get involved with collective action. When you hear, as a matter of fact, let's talk about that. Been told they're trash their whole lives. By whom? Again, when you hear these narratives, you have to ask people to be specific about whom told you you were trash. Specificity is important. It is of the greatest priority. If you're going to use a platform like this to espouse your long internalized self hatred and self loathing and project it onto others, infecting them with your own insecurities. And then jump online and have these panels in which you have your pity parties where you can trauma bond. And it always goes the same way. I won't even give these Negroes real names. Derelict Negro Male 3254 hops on a panel with Derelict Negro Male 0136. And they get to trading their notes about how they've been wronged and how they've been rejected and how these women only like a certain type of man. which to some degree, women liking a certain type of man very well may have some validity. And then yet a third derelict Negro male comes on to out pity them. And like, yeah, man, I was done wrong by this girl. And you know, then what happened was, yeah, I had that happen to me too, bro. You know what I mean? It comes with the territory, bro. Blah, 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 blah. And then third Negro comes in like, man, let me tell you something, man. Not only did that happen to me, but, you know, she did this, that, the third. And, you know, she put an explosive device in my house, burnt my clothes, and she burnt the dog alive and then drowned it. And then she tried to take the kids. It was like just trying to out pity one another. Oh, woe is me, pity me. These bitches been doing me wrong. Well, it's so interesting that I find many of these Negroes who deal with multiple women and have the same fucking story from each one of these women, man, and then say all these women is the same. Well, one thing all of those women have in common is you. He goes on to say, when you hear a black man say, I like Trump because he's a gangster, rather than berating him for admiring a white nationalist, accused rapist who stole from kids with cancer, offer an alternative. Real gangsters aren't in debt to the Russian mob for billions of dollars. When you hear a black man claim straight black men are always being told they ain't shit, and they point to some random tweet online post, hit them with some facts. Black men still run the majority of businesses, and households in Black America are voted into office by Black women and awarded the most promotions amongst the Black community. Well, of course, they're awarded more promotions. There are fewer Black men employed than there are Black women. And in fact, that's the reason why Black women have a very difficult time being promoted, because there's so many of them working in many of the same fields that promotion cannot be proliferated, especially if they're all working at a similar level. It says real kings should be able to take a little heat. Most importantly, when you hear a black man say all these protests didn't do shit, you could highlight you could highlight the fact that everything they're afforded in life is a result of black men and women protesting all throughout history. It won't work though. It's better to highlight the multifaceted approach to activism. Yes, protest alone don't do enough, but in combination with voting and economic empowerment policies, that's the only way black people have made any progress. Now you're going to sign this petition or what? And speaking of a multifaceted approach, if you haven't already, go to grayregime.tv, click on the link to the initiative, and you'll find the Gray Regime's multifaceted approach to many of the Black community's issues. It says this is not about reforming hardcore ADOS clowns, online trolls, or misogynists. Let's be honest, if you're triggered by a couple tweets, you clearly have some issues that need to be worked out. This is about the Black community. learning how to re engage our problematic brothers. Even if Donald Trump loses, what have we gained as a community if we decide that 13% of black men are just trash? White people always find a space for their problematic men. White women have, on the left, have opened their hearts to the 53% in the hopes of turning them into maybe only the 50% by election time. We will not solve misogynoir. Now, this guy is really telling me that he is pro LGBTQ and possibly a, I don't know, a Mitch. Because that's very feminine. Men should not use terms such as misogynoir. That is a black feminist intersectionalist dog whistle. It says, but finding a way that we can interact with the ice cubes in the black community, whether they are CEOs or work at the DMV or UPS, should be a long-term strategy instead of treating these men like short-term punching bags. I agree. Men like Ice Cube and 50 Cent are millionaires who can afford to be politically ignorant because wealth protects them. Well, I wouldn't say wealth protects them. I don't foresee wealth protecting any black person. Just ask Henry Louis Gates, Dr. Dre. Uh, I mean, name any one of them. It didn't protect Tiger Woods. It hasn't protected Robert F. Smith for certain. And it hasn't protected people like Byron Allen. And so even in him writing this um, hit piece, which is filled with misinformation, and as much as he thinks he is right, I want you to think about what kind of intellect he has to where he thinks that wealth can insulate you from the idea of race. However, your brother in law, neighbor, and friend spouting similar toxic ideas are hurting themselves and the community around them. We can all see the cube in them. But with a little time and patience, we can also give them a healthy dose of common sense. And this is the Negro here. And you can tell by the look on his face, he is not averse to dropping to his knees and gargling the balls of white society. He is clearly an LGBT Negro using terms like misogynoir and blah, 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 blah. Hell, the only thing he's missing is some high heeled Chelsea boots and probably some Chanel number 9, maybe some lip gloss. I would like for many of these Negro to just simply come out of the closet. At least identify yourself. Stop being ashamed who you are. But we have many of them. They love to wrap themselves in the cloak of pro blackness whenever it's convenient, as they go around here antagonizing black folk. Oh, yes. And then many of them come on here genderizing the conversation while wearing the cloak of pro blackness. Jason Johnson at the griot. See, here is the fundamental problem. Because the way he wrote this piece, he is not entirely wrong. And what I would say into him is that he is just as confused as the people he is writing about. But then again, I guess it doesn't really take a whole lot to earn a PhD anymore as long as you're willing to go into debt. And while he's writing this, this is what's really happening in the world, or rather in the United States. Trump and McConnell's mostly white male judges buck 30-year trend of increasing diversity in the courts. Mm. You see, because when white males had a monopoly on power in this country, that is their idea of what it means to be great. They think that making America great again implies white males having the monopoly on power. $218 judges appointed, historic levels, historical number of judges appointed by Trump. And because you have taken your eye off the prize, you have allowed the old Confederacy to rise again. You have allowed the old Confederacy to rise right under your nose. I want you to understand something clearly. I don't have a negative or a positive thing to say about Ice Cube's actions. However, what he said is absolutely correct. The black community is no longer in a position to where we can afford the luxury of giving our full support to a single party. And I find it appalling for either Republicans or Democrats, Negro or otherwise, to think that they are entitled to black support. Just think of how insulting it was when Trump said, "What have you got to lose?" Well, it's quite apparent that we've already lost 218 seats in the courts that could have been ours. We lost that. 218 federal appointments, that is a lot of life changing power that transforms communities. In fact, I mean, you look at this map, it has transformed the landscape of the current political environment. It is another act of idiocy to lend support specifically because, well, you know what's so funny? You know what's so funny about all this? Is that 50 Cent came out and said, I don't care if Trump doesn't like us. And in reality, he's not exactly lying. You shouldn't really care if a politician likes you or not. I mean, he's a politician. He inherently dislikes you, which is why he's running for office. Get more power to cause a separation between you and said, him. It's obvious. No politician really likes you, which is why you never hear from these politicians until it's time to run for an office. But don't you find it strange? You have on one hand telling, you know, the Democrats telling you that you should despise Trump because he hates black people. You know, the same way Kanye West did when he said Bush doesn't like black people. Hell, LBJ didn't like black people. Did that stop black people from sitting in the office of LBJ to get the 64 Civil Rights Act passed? Nixon didn't like black people. In fact, he created an entire campaign called the War on Drugs to spark the first embers of what would be mass incarceration. But did that stop black leaders, even back then, from sitting in his office to discuss some kind of referendum for black people? Because that's how politics works. You work with who is willing to work with you. Many of you work for people whom you hate. In fact, you shouldn't care about whether a person hates you or not. You see? But I do find it interesting on one side, you have the Democrats telling you you should despise Trump because he hates black people. But yet you hear this same narrative coming from the Republicans who are telling you you should vote Republican because the Democrats don't really like you. You know what that is? It's called doublespeak. I mean, when you really think about it, what have the Republicans really offered black people that would encourage us to lend our support? Because as far as I can see it, the conservative Negroes who litter this space, they're doing the same thing with the Republicans as Negroes currently do with the Democrats, throwing their votes and support away, squandering it, just to say, I got a sticker in school. You see? Same shit. And I always find it rather interesting that it is only with the Negro who either of these parties make these active campaigns to split block votes. You know, because block voting really does matter. But you're the only block who is not a block. And the only reason why you're not a block is because you have these agents of chaos and stupidity. I mean, this is literally a Republican conversation. This is how they always go. You're stupid if you vote Democrat. Get off the Democratic plantation. Join the Republican Party because we're free thinkers. We think for ourselves. But all the talking points that they use are some shit that was left over from the Southern strategy. Well, the Democrats, because the Democrats, welfare policies. You mean that same welfare that white women have always benefited from since the New Deal? You know, that same New Deal that black people were locked out of? Isn't it? Isn't it interesting? And because today is a panel style discussion, we are going to have a panel. If you want the link, you know where the link is. Wink, wink is. We'll be back after some words from our sponsors.
Hello, my name is DeAndre, and I am the host of the 1/3 Show. The 1/3 Show starts every Tuesday at 8:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time on YouTube, on my channel, Just DeAndre. And remember, no one will beg you to be great. Salute to the nation. Salute to the black nobility. Abon Nobilis.
Hi, this is Char Willie from the Just Ask Char Advice channel on YouTube. Join me and Classic Ruby every Wednesday night for an episode of Keep the Beat at 9:30 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. here on Classic R&B Jams. Soulful sounds all around town.
Hey, folks, it's your nighttime. It's your right time, DJ Music. Have you heard? There's a brand new radio station in town. It's called Classic R&B Jams Radio. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Bringing you all the great tunes that you like to sing along to. Music from the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, the 90s, and of course, the 2000s. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Classic R&B Jams Radio. The soulful sound all around town.
Jane, gold all in my chain.
So we're just waiting for our guest to arrive. And we are joined by the esteemed Just DeAndre. Welcome to the panel and greetings.
Oh, greetings. What's going on? Hoorah and Yurt. What is going on?
Oh, we are here talking about this current political environment.
I don't, I was, I was looking at what Ice Cube was saying. And I've been just, looking at these things in the news. There was just a recent article about Waka Flocka saying, Trump was a better president than Obama, and all of this posturing on both sides of the fence. And to really be honest with you, I just, my thoughts on this is, one, let's just take away the presidential debate, right? the presidential election. Let's just I don't think that we as a community are politically astute enough to even worry about, nor shall we care about who the president of the United States is.
Agreed.
Right? That does not help you. And I will point that it doesn't help you all the way to the fact that look at, prior to 4 years ago, because 8 years there was a black man in office and did absolutely really nothing to push forward of the black community. And to say the least is because we didn't demand anything from him other than him being black and in the White House.
Well, and it's so funny because you had another prominent rapper back then who wrote a song. My president is black and my Lambo is blue, and I'll be goddamn from rims ain't two.
Yeah. We was just happy of making it to something, right? And it's understandable. I'm not going to fault black people for finally being able to achieve as a collective, as a collective, something that we were always taught that we wouldn't, right? We had black astronauts, black doctors, lawyers, bankers. A group of brothers owned a bank, a couple of banks, right? We black billionaires, millionaires. We have them today. Black people have been at the forefront of influence, the foundation of the great American nation, going through 400 years of oppression up until every second and every waking moment. And the one thing that you told a black man he could never do, he could go fight for his country, he could free other political prisoners, and he had to wait in line after each and every other group of people would use his struggle to have a seat at the table, and we would be left with nothing, and we would have this moral high ground. But a black man could not be president of the United States. And a black man still hasn't been president of the United States because Barack Obama is an African American.
Yes.
Yes.
Very low expectations.
Yes. So a black man has not become the president of the United States. An African American man has become a president of the United States. A ADOS black man with now we done had a ADOS black woman as the first lady of the United States of America. And the first children have been ADOS, right? But he did represent us as all of the BS that he took. He did represent us and showed how in the face of adversity, black people can take a lot of disrespect. Right? Now, other groups of people, from the LGBT community down to the military veterans and other sources of people, and other minority groups have, in fact, got a lot from President Barack Obama, right? We got a person that looked like you can get into the office. So what's your excuse? Stop being lazy. That's what we got. What everybody else got was hope. All that stuff that he was running on. And to say the least, all those policies that he put forth, they were policies that were put forth, that were brought up on the Democratic ticket back when Al Gore was running for president against George Bush. So they just pushed him back like a couple of years, and they got everything done. If you look at everything green and so forth or whatever, right? Infrastructure programs, but this comes with funding. And this comes from congressional federal funding. But even with all the congressional federal funding, it takes it takes them to implement this, the implementation of this statewide. because the federal government can fund something to a particular state, but it's up to the state to take those resources and put them in the proper places that they need. So you can have a federal program. The only time federal funding directly goes to anything where they have complete and utter jurisdiction and oversight over anything that needs to be done is in the military and in foreign relations. Right? So what I'm saying is this: we shouldn't care about who's the president of the United States. It means absolutely nothing, because the president of the United States has not done anything for black people. Now, the president of the United States represent American people, and majority of America is white. Now, how do the other minorities get things done that they get done? Well, let's see. Where the other minorities are, they are in the same places that black folk are. You cannot go in the United States where you see a high concentration of minorities and you immigrants, and you don't see black folk. So what do they get that we don't get? Well, they get a lot of things, but they get the things that we were supposed to get, that we fought for. Now, why is that? Is because we're used to this political meandering of sorts. We should not be loyal to any party. We should be loyal to whoever's going to give us what we want.
Hell, we were loyal to the Republican Party for 80 years.
80 years. 80 years. Yeah.
All throughout Reconstruction into the 60s.
Exactly. And I get it. You know, we compare ourselves to other cultures and other groups of people, but how can a group of people that have been in this country for a less length of time than you get their things faster than you? There's a myriad of reasons they come in here with infrastructure. America's doing the great brain drain. America has been trying to replace the black person as long as they can remember, but they just can't do it. They just can't do it, right? And because the reason why America can't replace the black person is because the black person is America.
Yes.
See, this is the problem that I see with a lot of us as a group. We do not consider ourselves as American. Now, yes, racial injustices, prejudice, redlining, all of that is in case. But if you feel as though that you're not a part of a society or a group or a country, you will not fight for the right to be that. You will fight for rights, you will fight for privileges, but you won't fight for the right to be a part of that group of what it is. If I'm going to build a house, build a city, a town, a state, a nation for 400 years with the blood, sweat, and tears of the investment of my ancestors and my forefathers, then that is my house, that is my land, that's what it is. I do not belong somewhere else. I can go wherever I please, but my home, my land, my culture is that of where I was born. So why are we running somewhere else? And if you're only, how can you demand something from someone to represent you when you don't dare take ownership and onus of representing the very place that you live in, that you built?
Yeah, that has always confused me.
Yes.
Like on one hand, you're saying, we built this country. And on the other hand, saying, man, fuck this country.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I don't, and you know, and you know, for the other, for our, you know, for our melanated challenged counterparts, um, like how I said that was a good one. That was good.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. So for our, you know, for our melanated challenged counterparts, they'll say it too. When the last time you seen a black person burn an American flag?
Um, I can't think of a time I've seen that.
You seen who's been you seen hippies burn the American flag all the time when they did Occupy Wall Street. They were burning flags and everything, right?
Oh yeah.
Right? And you know, and actually they supposed to lock you up and take you to jail for desecrating the flag in such a way. Is this not correct?
That is correct.
They desecrate the flag every time they go to an NFL game when they're folding. They ain't supposed to fold it like that. But that's neither here nor there. But what I'm basically saying is this. Our melanated counterparts, they won't tell you who they're voting for. It's none of your business, right? You will have a leftist, a far left, a far right. At the end of the day, they're not, and then they will switch. They will switch their political affiliations according to what they are offered. If this was not the facts, then we would always have a Democratic president, or we would always have a Republican president.
Right.
We would have what we would call akin to a prime minister. You'll be president. Matter of fact, who was it? Was it which Roosevelt was it that put that executive order that a president can only serve 2 terms? And it's just honored by Congress. Like, do you know an 8-term president is only an executive order that's only just honored by Congress? That's all. That's it. He just didn't want to be president no more. He just got tired of it.
Oh.
He served 3 terms as a president. So what does that tell you? Is that the people that actually will affect your lives are the people that represent you in the Senate and the House of Representatives. But the people that really, really affect you within the next 3 to 6 months are your city council.
Yeah, those are all state representatives.
And your state representatives that are in your state. The judges, the circuit judges and things like that. We need to go back. Remember Schoolhouse Rock when they used to tell you how a bill got to be a law?
Oh yeah.
We need to go back to that. We need to have politics for dummies. Right? Because we all, the whole American landscape, we all are politically inept. You know how you look across the globe, Cerulean? You know when you look in Korea and Russia and all in Italy, you know when you look at the Congress and you see them videos online of how those congressmen are punching each other in the face?
Oh yeah.
Fighting over policy, literally fighting over policy. They're putting hands on each other in suits.
Oh yeah.
You know why they're doing that? So their constituents don't go out in the street and do that. If you see someone representing you willing to draw blood to get a policy that represents you, and these are homogeneous countries, and they're punching each other in the face. They look like exactly like each other. Kim Jong looked like Kim Yi. And this one's conservative, and this one's, this one's liberal, and they're punching each other in the face, and they got to be separated. In Italy, they smacking the hell out of each other. The worst thing you can do to another man on disrespect is smack him. Used to be duels after that. But what I'm saying is that what Ice Cube did, because when I first saw the title, it was a shock and awe thing. It was basically to separate and keep us unorganized. What he did was right. Do you want to come to the table? No, after the election. You vote for me first. Okay. Yo, you talking? All right, you talking. All right, we going to talk. We going to talk. Here's some knowledge for y'all. Did y'all know that Malcolm X had a conversation and met with the leaders of the KKK and then delivered the results of that meeting to Elijah Muhammad? Hmm.
And it wasn't shamed by the community to do, against it either.
Yeah. So you have to meet with your adversaries at the end of the day.
As a
There
matter
will be.
of fact, you go all the way back. That was actually a common occurrence, and it wasn't that he
Sought the meeting.
Seeked out the meeting. It was the fact that the KKK seeked out the meeting, because you noticed that there was this tremendous power that they could not quell.
Yes.
Which was the Nation of Islam, growing.
Yeah. And they were organized. They had a code, and sooner or later that power would have political repercussions beyond anything that they could muster. Right? So you have to meet with your adversary. Everything is what it is. We have to be politically savvy enough to understand, because think about it. There is no way on God's green earth that Donald Trump should be representing the whole of America unless America felt that he was the best option. If Barack Obama could have went for another term, he would still be president. Now, would anything have changed?
No.
Absolutely not. But they would look better in the sight, in the eyesight of the world. The reason why Hillary Clinton was not president is because her influence and respect, and they looked out on the landscape. The world leaders could not stand her. The world leaders don't like Trump, but they fear him. They did not fear her. I would rather have fear than love when it comes to the protection of my people. So that's why Donald Trump is really the president of the United States. Because if he would say off the wall and say crazy stuff like that to anyone, to his own people, what do you think he's going to do to you in some other country? Right? The chancellor of Germany, right?
Yep.
The prime minister of Germany had some choice words about Donald Trump, and Donald Trump just started removing troops in Germany. And you know what she said? Well, let's not be so hasty.
Yeah.
He didn't do a lot of back and forth. He did complete and utter action. And you know why he could do that? Because he is the commander in chief of the United States military. He just thought, and guess what? Shutting down bases and removing personnel saves the government money. Guess who came back at the table? Hey, let's work this out. Because guess what? You can have all those provisions, but you need protection. Is the UN going to secure? The UN ain't securing jack. Because guess who funds the UN? We do. Hey, remember when Dave Chappelle did that skit about being the Black Bush? Sanction me with your army. You ain't got one. So when he said, how Bush really wanted to say stuff.
Yep.
And that's true. So politically, the president of the United States is just a representation of the temperature of the country in which other nations are dealing with. He is the representation of the nation, and he is just there as a measuring stick on how other nations need to deal with America. And he is the commander in chief. So that means he is the leader of conquest. Just is built off the Roman concept.
Yeah.
The Roman structure. It's a republic. You pledge allegiance to the flag, United States of America, on the republic of which it stands. republic. You are in a republic. Just think about that for a second. Everything that the United States is built on is basically built off the concepts of Rome. Politically.
Yeah.
And even socially. Even down to the educational system and the daily livelihood. It's just that we have technology, to say the least. And the United States is going down the same path as Rome. And the reason why Rome burnt down in a day, which is a saying, is because it stretched itself out.
Yeah, far too thin.
And what is happening is that the United States has stretched itself out far too thin, so they got to come back. Now, how does this play for Black folk? Well, I'm gonna tell you, this is my options, and the reason why I can speak on this for the, like they would say, the people in the back with the helmets on, this is for you. I live outside the country, so I can see the whole forest past the trees. Is that when Obama was president, every nation in the world loved it. You know why they loved it? Because when a Republican is in office, it's always the stick. When a Democrat is in office, it's more of a carrot. That means the threshold and the overall dominance and the boot heel is going to be relaxed just enough off of their neck so they can breathe. Just enough. Just enough. Right? Now, they can do deals, they can do whatever they need. They can make money in a quick vacuum. And then when the Republican gets back in office as the president, then the whole policy changes and it goes back to normal. It's the seesaw effect. How this does affect Black people? It doesn't. It has nothing to do with you. It only affects you if you live outside of the country and you are an American citizen. It does not affect you one iota to a certain degree. When it does affect you is when you start getting incursions of people flying into the country, grabbing what is rightfully yours and your resources. That's when those international relief refugee policies really affect you.
Yeah.
Because the money that they're giving to these asylum seekers is the money they need to be putting into your communities. And your political loyalty to one party is a detriment to the fight. Because you got one party saying you ain't got no choice. And you got another party that's saying, well, if you come over here, we may think about talking to you. Right? And the problem is that we need to collectively and in a vacuum push forward things politically to push out what we have done. And we need to write down our list of demands. People talk about reparations. No, I don't want reparations. I want recompense. Because reparations is something that you pay out to someone, but it's a one-time investment. You're paying a settlement, as we see with all of the police brutality tragedies. Those families are paid a settlement. So when Black people are speaking reparations, then that means you're asking for a settlement in the cases of a 40 acres and a mule. Recompense means it's a recurring thing that happens forever. until the fall of the nation in its entirety.
Yeah, in perpetuity.
Exactly. It's easy to give a ignorant slave 40 acres and a mule because you know you're going to get it back. And you know you're going to get it back better than what you gave it to him. Because the only thing he knows how to do is work, but he doesn't know how to maintain it by keeping it. You gave him provisions, but he can't protect it.
Mm.
And then you make it so hard for him to keep it that he will willingly give it back up because he wants protection. Now, this equation that I wrote in here, people that have talked to me in the back chats, they know what this means, but I'm going to explain it once again. P2 times P4 equals P, but P2 times P4 minus F equals RP. So what I'm going to explain to you is this. P2 is provisions. So the reason why the P2 is there is because if it's you and another person. This was originally written for the quote unquote dating community. So they understand as easy as possible what actually happens and why they can't deal with keeping their women in line and in check. So P2 is provisions. You have to provide for her, you have to provide for yourself. P times P4, you have to be able to protect your provisions times 2, because you have to have double the security and protection per provision. Times P4 equals peace, peace of mind, and peace of, well, we all know the other piece that you would like. But in a respective to the community is P2 is provisions. P4 is protection. But do you know what minus F is? Minus the fear of dealing with your enemy and commit, and then you get, and what equals to is respect and power. See, a lot of y'all want provisions and you want protection, but a lot of y'all are more scared of white folk than you are afraid of your own people. And what I mean by that is you are afraid to sit in front of white folk confidently, not screaming and yelling and hollering, and demand what is owed to you.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Oh yeah, the presidential debate going on. So what basically, you know, so basically, if you have to get rid of your fear.
Mm-hmm.
We as a community have to get. Ice Cube did the right thing. Yes, I was taken back by the title until I sat down and with my esteemed brother and cerulean here, and we sat down and and I brought it to someone that is more privy. This is his wheelhouse. So I said, hey, what'd you think about this? I want to hear your thoughts, because what's my emotions in what I'm saying or whatever. And then he broke down exactly what he was saying. And when I thought about it, I said, you know what? How can we simplify this? Because, we do have a lot of remedial people in the community, and it's not all of their fault. They're just ignorant. Ignorance doesn't mean they're dumb. It's just they're ignorant to certain things. They're not exposed to. And this is why we do the content that we do, because you're exposed to all the other debauchery and foolishness. You know what? And this is not just to go on the sidebar. If Black folks in that sector spent as much time and research doing abominable things to each other and put that into other matters of actually helping the community. And helping the community can also be the sharing of information.
I mean, yeah, like you just think like, because I used to do this with some of the police here. Right, we used to put their information out. They get caught in some kind of thing where they beat up a kid on the street or
Yeah.
like that, would put their information out. People go to their fucking houses and shit, and then now you need like all kind of extra clearances to get access to that now. But if they can spend the time that they spend digging up information or having motherfuckers' houses swatted and all that other goofy shit, and use that actually in a way to where it's against our enemies, political, social, economic enemies.
Mm-hmm.
We'd be in a completely different way. So I say like we have a tendency to abuse this platform in that sense.
Exactly. And don't get me wrong, and don't get us misconstrued. We're just saying that if you're going to use that talent, use it for something to help the community. Like it's just, do I publicly condone that? No, I do not.
Well, how about using it on motherfuckers that deserve it?
There you go. There you go. Right. I'm like, how many child abductions? Remember they had that task force that ran on. It's a whole ring running up and down the East Coast. Right. Use that for that. Right. Your future is only as good as the kids that you have. Right.
Yeah. Well, not to use that skill to track down Amber Alert abductees.
Thank you. And you know what? And to be honest with you, I do see social media being used for that. I get stuff all the time when some child comes up missing and people on social media going ham. Did you see such and such? Did you see, I see it a lot. And I really see it from the Black community. Black people, and I would like to say this. The loud minority does not represent the whole of what the quiet majority is actually doing and actually accomplishing, to say the least. But sometimes we do have to focus on the loud minority, because if we don't, it will become the dysfunctional majority.
Indeed.
Your everyday Black person, and Black people are waking up. Black people are waking up. You know what? I heard Snoop Dogg was on Shannon Sharp's podcast, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he said, and I didn't even know this, right? He said this is the first time he's going to vote. And the reason that is because he's a felon, but he didn't know that he could vote. And there are things that you can do, even with a felony, that where you can get your rights to vote.
Indeed.
So if that brings in a lot of more voters, especially if Black men are disproportionately incarcerated and giving the max sentences to their melanated challenged counterparts, right? The MCs, can we call them MCs?
Yeah.
Okay, to the MCs, right? Then that brings in more votes. Then that bolsters, with voting and political savvy, that bolsters power. You know?
Yeah, and the more I look at this map, I mean, and they're telling you every election season, man, they're telling you that the power is in the states, it's not in the executive office.
Yes. Yes. That is correct. The powers are in the states, but the powers are also with the judges.
Mm-hmm.
Right? See, the one thing that the president can do is he can get you on the executive end, the executive branch back in when it comes to judges. But then you're talking about when you get up to what the circuits and stuff like that, right? And a lot of us can't get past, just the first judge. If we have to deal with the court systems and things of that nature, which, here's the thing: if you want them, and if you want them to do certain things and stop disproportionately messing with black folk and stuff like that, we have to be without fear with dealing with our enemy head on. We have to stop. Oh, the police come duck and hide. You have to get out of this mindset, right? And you know why a lot of do you know why a lot of these Karens and Chads and Samanthas and stuff are being put on blast? Because the black people that they're harassing are not running in fear.
Mm-hmm.
They will stand there, they will pull out their phone, and they will record them. Just standing your ground, knowing what you're doing is right, waiting for law enforcement to get there, and knowing your rights and respectfully and calmly challenging the situation with empirical evidence. You saw the Karen with the dog. Well,
Oh, yeah. But we've been going for nearly 2 hours and 15 minutes. I think that is a good note to end on. We don't want to give the audience information overload. I'm sure we'll go much longer, but I think this is a good time to get up out of here.
Yeah, why shouldn't
we? You got last words?
Yeah, no one's going to beg you to be great, but we will hold you accountable. And we do not negotiate with terrorists of any ilk.
Indeed. And I want to say gratitude for all who have joined this night. Say gratitude for all who will catch the replay. Remember, the power is in the states. And no matter what government, body, or institution that it is, can't do anything without your permission. Can't do anything that you don't allow them to. The old Confederacy has risen again. And you may not like it, but black man, this is your fault. As we have seen, Trump could literally go down in history as probably either an idiot savant or probably one of the most politically brilliant presidents in history. See, the thing about people like Trump is that he can play stupid. And in fact, it causes you to take him less serious simply because of his reality TV apprentice style antics. And as a result, it dumbs you down, throws you off, and you think it's not a person that can be taken seriously, because that's what playing stupid is meant to do. That's exactly what it's meant to do. It's meant to lower your defense and And while he has had your defenses lowered, while you took him for the carrot top clown, he has literally been playing one of the greatest games of risk in which no one has ever seen before. And you didn't even see it coming. And this happened all on your watch, on our watch. We can't blame anyone else for this but ourselves, for our lack of vigilance. And so with that being said, you have been on air with the gray regime. Our values are honor, valor, sacrifice, and esprit de corps. We do not separate ourselves among socioeconomic lines, class strata, or gender. It has been an honor, a pleasure, and a privilege serving you once again. Salute to the nation. Long live the black nobility. Ebon Noblesse.